Hi and welcome to Spooky Hours. My name's David Saunderson and today we're joined by Nigel Wright, a paranormal journalist and researcher of 27 years in the professional game. How are you, Nigel?
Hello there, David. I'm fine, thank you. Yourself? Keeping well?
Yes, I'm doing well. Now, I say 27 years, but you basically, most of your life's been researching peculiar things. And one of the things I was talking to you after our conversation the last time you appeared on Spooky Hours was we were talking about big cats. You know, it's quite legendary to see, you know, big cats and big dogs, you know, black shucks, all those type of things in English folklore. Now, people sometimes still see, you know, alien cats and maybe think that they're, you know, escaped jaguars or pumas or whatever it might be from you know, amateur zoos or something like that. But you tend to think there might be a little bit more to it than that.
There might very well be, yes, I believe so, because my background is I'm West Countryman. Somerset born, Dorset mum, Devonshire dad. I've got a background of folklore and legend. My father's family farmed on Dartmoor. My mother's family farmed on the Salisbury Plain. So I was inundated with stories of legends and folklores, including that was big cats, or actually black dogs. But I mean, I think they may be one and the same. I'll go on to that later. I think to be fair, it's 50-50. There is a definite thing. I've seen a melanistic leopard, a black panther, commonly called.
What do you mean melanistic? What does that mean? I don't know that word. Okay.
But we call it a melanistic. It's just a zoological term for it.
Okay.
It's a melanistic leopard. There's no such thing as a black panther. Okay, we'll get that over quickly. I'm being picky. Okay, I got towed off for it many years ago when I started cryptozoology, and I've remembered it ever since. But no, I mean the thing is, yes, after the Dangerous Animal Act in 1971, a lot of private collectors just release their animals into the wild rather than have them put down or build a £5,000 or £6,000 pen to keep them in. The licenses were extremely expensive. Up to then, you could buy a jaguar or a puma cub or a leopard cub in Lena and one of the rich department stores in London for 60 guineas. So I mean, it was, you know, it was a pop star sort of symbol. I remember seeing pop stars walking along with big cat cubs on chains, which is ridiculous, but they are. But the actual history of releasing big cats in the English countryside goes right back to the war, Second World War. There was, for instance, where I used to live near Exeter, there's a big place called Holden Hill, which is a bit of woodland just on the outside, just to the south of Exeter. And during World War II, there was US Air Force people, or as it was then Army Air Force people stationed at Exeter Airport. They had a bobcat as their good luck token, or whatever you call them now. And of course, they couldn't take it with them on D-Day, so they took them up to Holden and let them go. So you get a lot of people, this question of letting big cats loose is very common. So yeah, there is, you know, to be fair, a good proportion of them are, I believe, naturally habitating cats, and the big cats in the UK. The government don't want to make a fuss of it because you don't want to get everyone panicking one way and not going out, or getting loose for their guns and shooting everything that moves on in the country.
Do they breed with each other, or because I mean, I imagine that
they breed.
It's hard. They can breed.
They can breed. Lions and tigers, not so much. You can get a tigran, but they have bred in the sense that I've got reports, written reports from members of the Serving Armed Forces, Royal Marines, in Lympstone, which is their main UK training base. They place a little close by called Woodbury Common, which is a hybrid of moorland, and it's used as their main training place for the basic recruits. And a lot of them have seen these melanistic leopards, black panthers, I will call them a common name, black panther, with young running alongside them when they're about on exercise, and they've seen them at night and in day. So there's a question, they're breeding. The most common one, of course, is the lynx. Well, the lynx was actually habitual in England up till just a few hundred years ago. It's a natural habitat. But lynx are amazing animals. The Eurasian lynx, which is what we're talking about now, is a European lynx. It can eat anything from insects up to baby deer. It's an incredible creature, very versatile, very good hunters. They roam going up to 40 miles a night hunting. So, you know, you're talking about a very capable hunter. He's I've actually had one sat in bush 2 feet away from me, and I didn't even know it was there. I mean, they're incredibly...
How did you know it was there then?
I didn't know it was there until the person next to me said, "Oh, look, it's a big cat." And something bobbed out of the way and jumped out of the bush 2 feet from me. And that was on the moors. And I sort of went, I caught a tail sight of a lynx disappearing. I've been into cages with lynx at Dartmoor Wildlife Zoo, so I know what they look like up close and personal.
So are they still there? Are they still there? These lynx out in the wild?
Oh yeah, yeah, lynx are no doubt.
Are they native lynx, or are they ones?
They're they come down. They used to come down. I knew the owner of Dartmoor Zoo, which unfortunately now is suffering. It's a little private zoo on the edge of the moor, and Elias, and he was a lovely bloke, Elias Drew. He used to breed tigers in his house for a hobby. So he used to breed 800-pound Bengal tigers. So this guy knows what he's talking about. And he said, "You shoved me in this cage with the lynx." He goes, "Yeah, they come down every night off the moor, the male lynx. They call to the females in season in the cage." He said, "We let one or two go occasionally, keep the breeding going." He said, "So I know it goes on, and they've been caught, they've been killed on Bodmin. There's a couple of roadkills of them, so we know they're there. It's just something the government don't particularly want widespreadly known, because they don't want lunatics with guns going off every 5 seconds."
What do you think the population of these sort of a big cat population is?
That is very difficult to say. I wouldn't even like to hazard a guess. A few hundred, maybe. I mean, not a lot. I wouldn't think there's an awful lot, because Britain's too small an island for that. But
yeah,
I would say, well, I'm going to really cut a ballpark figure, maybe a couple of hundred.
Yeah,
certainly not any more than that. There was a programme to release lynx in the Highlands of Scotland a few years back, but I don't think it actually got off the ground. There was a lot of public resentment to it for some reason, because lynx are lovely animals. They're beautiful animals. And I personally, I wouldn't like to face with one in the middle of the night on war, because I've been there and I don't like that very much. I actually drove back from a meeting, would you believe, of a zoological society I belonged to. One night we've been talking about big cat sightings. 11:30 would be common. Drove down to my people carrier. I had a big Seat, and a big high up off the ground, big windscreen. Nice road, little narrow road going into Exmouth, and it's got fields one side and a forest the other, with a tall hedge on the left as you're going down. And all of a sudden I see what I think is bags of rubbish in the road. And I think, well, fly tipping was common on there, so I thought, oh my God, I don't want builder's rubble getting out of the car and damaging it. Slowed down, stopped, and I'm about 50 yards maximum from it. Just put on my headlights on the max to see what it was, put on main beam. And this bag of rubbish suddenly jumped, well, actually got up, looked at me like that, and it was about, you're talking about 4 foot to the shoulder, about 5 foot long, with a tail almost like that, slim, like that. It's a classic big cat. I looked at ears, point up, and these sort of orangey, yellowy eyes in the reflection of the headlight. And I think, I'm being a skilled and trained observer and journalistic reporter. I panicked like mad, locked my doors, and sat there with my mouth open. To my disgrace, I had a brand new loaded digital camera in the glove box. Did I reach for it? No. I just sat there, and I think I was mesmerised by this creature. And it just slowly strolled over, got up, hissed at me, and then strolled over to the hedgerow on the left. And with that lovely, graceful, sort of slow bounding they do, and it jumped up over this sort of 8-foot fence or hedge into the forest and gone. And I said it to the warden the next day. I phoned up the warden of the moor of the common there, and I said, look what I'd seen. So yes, they're in that forest. You often find deer carcasses up in the trees where they're stripped of bone, of meat, and they leave the carcass up in the tree. So I know they're there. It's a magnificent sight when you see one. But yeah, that's a flesh and blood creature.
That is. So, but what about the you talked about growing up with a family from Dorset and from Somerset, and knowing all the sort of the folklores and legends. Do you still think that that's, you think that you said 50-50, some of these sightings might be more supernatural?
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll go on Dartmoor. That's a good example to start with. Everybody's heard about Exmoor and the Hounds of the Baskervilles. The famous book by Conan Arthur Doyle. And he actually based that story on the story of the Hounds of Hell that was going around Exmoor. There's an old folk legend. And the same on Dartmoor. All these moorlands have got these sort of legends. The same in Norfolk, they got the Shuck Hound. And anyway, on Dartmoor, it's known as a Yeth Hound or a Whist Hound. I haven't got a speech impediment. That's the way it's pronounced and spelled. And what they are, in the Devonshire Association, which is a very old scientific or semi-scientific Victorian group that used to record old legends and songs and folklore from the West Country. They actually recorded, and I've done some research on this, and it was in the mid-1800s, and they were going around talking about folklores, and they came across these legends of the Black Hounds, Hellhounds, and these things that were recorded. One account I absolutely fascinated by: broad daylight, a horse and carriage, 4-horse carriage going along a moorland road, and this hound goes past them, the open door, on its hind legs, looking at them with its flaming eyes boiling out at them, and overtakes the carriage onto two back legs only. And then it's seen sitting on a post. There used to be granite posts on the moor that marked off parishional boundaries, and it was sat cross-legged on top of this thing. So, okay, fair enough. I no doubt it's somewhat embroidered for the sake of dramatic power, shall we say? Obviously, but more like it had some sort of black creature overtaking this carriage. Now you can take that one of 5 ways. Either there are living flesh and blood big cats that have been living in England for a lot longer than we thought, and they've been constantly there, and it's misidentification. A medieval peasant, for instance, or a late Tudor peasant would have not really known big cats because it's term of reference. Most of the menageries were owned by kings, and they were in London, big areas. Then the West Country, who would have known what a big tiger or lion looked like? Back in those days, you wouldn't have any term of reference, but you'd see big dogs. You'd have seen big dogs every day in the village. So if you're looking, turning on your field and look across a field and there's a big black dog, goes, oh look, now you can say that's the black dog of legend. It's a black dog, or it's a big cat. But because he thinks, well, I don't know what a big cat is, so he doesn't think of a cat, he thinks of a dog.
Yeah, because cats are little things for them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's a good point. I mean, I suppose you could say that, but I mean, legend and folklore always have an ounce of truth in them. I've often found that if you dig down and you take away the layers of veneer of dramatization that goes over it, it's the same with Victorians, what they did with King Arthur. You take away all the romanticism and all the bravado and the glamorization of it. You go back to a root little nugget of truth. And I think the same with black cats and big cats and these Shuck hounds. I mean, the accounts of where they go running in through churches and bound over and set fire to the church and knock the doors off, and it goes out. Beautiful legends of these black hounds of hell, and they're seen running across the moor, wailing on a full moon. Hints of a werewolf legend there, but I mean, it's what can you say? It's 50-50. I mean, if there are paranormal things, I would accept ghosts. I accept ghosts as being a fact. Again, I've seen it. I don't know if you've seen ghosts. I have. I was a very skeptical reporter on that point, and I did a ghost hunt up here at the Winter Garden Theatre, Morecambe. And I ended up bravely, or rather stupidly, volunteering to do a vigil solo on my own at 2 o'clock in the morning under the stage, and got attacked by one of the ghosts there, which is quite interesting. But I mean, as you say, unless you see it, you're not going to believe it. I've seen both. I've seen ghosts, so I believe in metaphysical or spiritual objects or another dimensional beings. And I believe in physical cats because I've seen that as well. That what I saw was definitely flesh and blood. There was no two ways about it. That wasn't a spirit or an interdimensional animal. That was a good. Honestly, I've checked with my zoologist friends. What I saw was a Melanistic Leopard, pure and simple. But going adult. So, black cats are an interesting subject, aren't they? Though you could go on for hours about that. You can come into all sorts of weird legends. Do you know of any cases like of recent times where you think the case might be more supernatural than? Well, I did notice
natural?
One thing. We had a UFO wave, for instance, in 1997 in Exmouth. Very big one. There's over 100 cases in one summer. And then it started going just more than cases. It was getting ghosts. We were getting lit up animals, which is rather weird. Running across the road, USOs, rather than UFOs, and submerged objects. And then we had a prevalence of more big cat sightings on the moor at the same time as we were getting an increase in UFO sightings. They seem to, I don't know about you, but I've often read that in waves of UFO activity, you get increased big cat sightings as well. Okay. It's almost as if people are more observant because they're looking out for strange flying lights. They see more weird things than they would notice normally. Or you've got a thing that somehow the actual atmosphere, the EMF activity or something is more prevalent at that time. This ties back in what I was saying to you about areas of high-end strangeness and EMF activity. And when you get EMF activity, when it does perform these little wonderful twists that it goes through on patches, you get a prevalence of big cat sightings. They do tend, so do Bigfoot. I believe the Bigfoot sightings in England nearly all occur in what we call areas of high strangeness.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, Bigfoot, yeah, and I find that absolutely. I found it very hard to believe. I found it very hard to take seriously because of the sheer area of Britain. And I thought, how can you have an indigenous Bigfoot species in England? That's ludicrous. And then, you know, no Bigfoot tribe could survive in, say, Dartmoor or Cannock Chase or anything like that, because it's just too small an area.
Yeah.
So then you think to yourself, well, if it's an interdimensional creature, then yeah, it could, because it pops in and out. It goes from one dimension to another. And now you start going into what we were talking about.
Another thing altogether. So, have you ever come across what you think is a supernatural black big cat?
Personally, no, not yet. I mean, I've obviously heard and seen and read thousands of accounts of big cat sightings. I did a film for a West Country TV company many years ago. I helped film there doing West Country sightings of big cats, and we interviewed literally dozens of witnesses, including ex-big game hunters in Africa who come back to retire in England. There's a lovely gentleman, and he was ex-army, of course, and he said, "Oh, I just saw." And he went out to pronounce the exact type of lynx he'd seen. That it was a female. It was about 2 years old. This guy knew exactly what he was talking about. You know, my wretched Labrador nearly had it. And you think, this guy's just talking about it as if it was a day on a safari, you know. Yeah. And this is on the edge of Dartmoor.
So it doesn't sound very supernatural. It just sounds very matter of fact. And there are cats out there, or you know.
Is it? Because if you tie the Shuck legends and the big black dog legends, then you're talking about something which is, if it's a natural occurrence, it's been blended into the paranormal or legends and folklore world over the centuries, which I'm fully prepared to accept. It's probably a natural occurrence that's been added to, that's the wrong word I'm looking for, iced up with a little bit of over dramatization, and so they take on a semi-paranormal structure of their own, which is a fascinating. Again, I still think it's very interesting how paranormal occurrences can be genuinely paranormal, or they can be perfectly normal, that have been, through no deliberate attempt to mislead people, but just through a period of time, they're retold and retold, and they get a life of their own, you know. So what was probably a big cat sighting then becomes, oh my God, there was a horrible big black death dog running across the moors.
Well, your tale, when you just said you could have overblown it and said that it was a demon dog or something like that, but you knew what it was.
It would have sold some copy, but I mean, I've always tried to be a skeptical-ish sort of journalist when it comes to the paranormal. I err on the side of caution of saying that was definitely paranormal, because I don't know who it was that actually said once that there's no such thing as a paranormal, just the normal that we have yet to explain. It's a very famous quote, and I can't remember for the life of me who said it now, but it's a good saying. Like a lot of things in the paranormal, one day they'll be perfectly acceptable science to us. We just haven't got there yet.
Oh, not at all. Anyway, until we get to that point, Nigel, we'll continue talking. So thank you for that. Okay. You know, I mean, I do find the whole idea of cats, big giant, cats roaming the moors of England a fascinating subject.
If I can just reassure our viewers or listeners and yourself, big cats, there are very easy and obvious ways to avoid being attacked. Now this comes from keepers, not myself. I was talking to people like Elias Drew who used to breed them. One, do not directly stare at them, because that is taken as a threat. So if you do have the misfortune to come close to one, don't stare, don't turn and run. If you turn and run, you back away slowly while keeping your eyes to the ground, and just slowly back off, face first. That way the cat will more than likely turn and just mind his own business and walk away. They're much more inclined to leave you alone than they are to attack. They'll only attack if they feel threatened, and that's the threatening. That was told to me by guys who know. So if that's any help to anyone.
And probably also stick to the road and stay off the moor probably helps as well. And beware the moon.
No, don't miss the moors. They're brilliant. I used to roam the moor. I used to climb Fortean across the moor all weekend. I used to do about 20 miles a week. In my days before I had COPD, I used to go mountain climbing, ordinary across the moors. Lovely places, brilliant places to get lost in for a weekend. And you're 30 miles away from civilization.
All right, well, maybe hopefully after all the lockdown, or once we've all finally finished all this, we'll be able to get back to them. So anyway, you take care of yourself, Nigel.
Thank you very much, David.
We'll
It's been great chatting to you again. Yep, and we'll talk again soon, I hope. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.